Hi, guys, and welcome to our discussion on building wealth through real estate in the Black community. I am Portia Wood, your favorite generational wealth planning attorney, and I'm so sorry that I cannot be live with you on this presentation. I am currently traveling. I am coming to you from the airport, but I wanted to make sure that you could get this information in full because it is so valuable. So we're going to be talking about building and protecting Black wealth through real estate. Now, if you were with us at the last presentation, at the last panel hosted by the NAACP Good Trouble Alliance, then you know that this is one of my favorite quotes. America doesn't respect anything but money, and what our people need is a few more millionaires. Now, hats off to the incomparable Madam C.J. Walker, but in her time, that was likely true. In our time, we need more billionaires with a B, and dare I say, trillionaires. But unfortunately, the trend is the opposite direction. Between 1983 and 2013, in just over one generation, the median Black and Latino households have seen our already low net worth decrease by 75 and 50% respectively, while median white households saw their net worth increase by 14%. The result is that this divide continues to grow. Right. And as we delve into some critical aspects of our history that continue to shape this landscape around Black home ownership and wealth building in America, it's important for us to review the systemic barriers and the practices and policies such as redlining and the unequal distribution of the GI Bill benefits, forced gentrification, like what we're seeing in California right now around Proposition 19, as well as unequal home evaluations, etc. So we're going to look at some of these things, but first, I've got a little pop quiz for you. What happened at Oscarville, Georgia? I'm going to give you a moment. Can you put it in the chats if you know, or if you think you know, if you even want to just take a guess? Put in the chat because I want this to be in a community engagement. What happened at Oscarville, Georgia? Where is Oscarville, Georgia, right? Well, Oscarville, Georgia was a population of 1,100 plus. It is currently buried under Lake Lanier in Georgia, which is a popular recreational area, particularly for its white residents. But that was not always the case. Oscarville was a prosperous Black community, thriving with skilled tradespeople, carpenters, blacksmiths, bricklayers, but it was marred by racial violence that burned down properties, that undervalued those properties in land sales because of this plague of racial violence, that then led to the government acquiring some 56,000 acres from the thriving Black families that were there at far less than what those properties were actually worth, and then they drowned the town. Many people say that Lake Lanier is haunted because of how many people drown in that lake every year. But the reality is that the government actually drowned an entire thriving Black community. And if you dive in Lake Lanier, you'll see homes, you'll see relics, you'll see remnants of family and life. Those community members who were unable to pass those assets of land and home, etc., to their kids were forever economically impacted. And I'm not talking about the 1700s. I'm talking about 1956. So we are still feeling the result of Oscarville, Georgia, in many African American families. But Oscarville, Georgia was not the only one. What happened in Coahuila, Alabama, or Benson, Alabama? Put in the comments if you think you know. And I picked these because they're lesser known. Most people are not familiar with these incidences. We all know Black Wall Street now, right? We all know Black Wall Street now. Many of us know about Seneca Village in New York turning into Central Park, and that used to be a thriving Black community that they took through eminent domain and turned into public parkland, essentially decimating and erasing that history and stealing that wealth. But what happened in Benson, Alabama? Well, similar to Oscarville, Georgia, it was drowned, right? By 1926, the land was taken and undervalued, eminent domain. And the government created a lake. They made a reservoir for hydroelectric power, what they thought was a better use than a thriving Black community, thus economically disadvantaging, again, a whole population of people. Now, what happened right here at home in Pasadena, California? And no, it is not a lake. It is not a lake. But what happened here in Pasadena, California? You can put it in the comments if you know. Well, in West Pasadena, they cleared the area through eminent domain, right? This constitutional taking of the government of private property for public projects. And that public project was the 710 freeway, or the freeway to nowhere, as we all know it today. The 710 was never created or never continued, right? That extension of the 710 never continued, but those homes were never returned to those families, and they were seized by the state in low income and minority families. Those properties today, I dare you to find a home in Pasadena that's under $700,000 and livable. You won't find it. So when we talk about the economic cost, it is well beyond the growth, but what that economics of those home growths represented. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. Even more modern, because there we're talking about the 70s. We're talking about a debate that ended just recently in the early 2000s. But this Baltimore appraisal, and actually this is the neighborhood I used to live in. These were my neighbors. Nathan Conley and his wife, Shani Mott, they had an appraisal company come into their home in Homeland, in Baltimore City. And when they had it appraised and they had their family photos and other things up on the wall, the appraiser appraised the home at $472,000. When they took down any remnants of them, right, any indicators that a Black family lived there, and had another appraisal company come out, it skyrocketed to $750,000 worth of value. Now, why does that matter? Because a property that's $750,000 in value has way more equity in it than a property that's $472,000. And what can we do with equity? Equity, we could do a cash out refinance from our homes, and that cash that we take out is tax free because it's a loan. We could do a home equity line of credit against the equity that's in our home, and again, that's tax free chunks of money that we can do additional property purchases with, or acquisition. We can do renovations, we can build ADUs, we can support kids and grandkids in going to school and their education so that they come out debt free. We have the opportunity to help give them down payment support on other houses or multi-unit properties. The list goes on and on. And so an appraisal that comes in almost $300,000 less than what the actual value would be for a white person is a significant impact on our wealth. And we have to be mindful of this, because this was published, or updated, I will say. It was published originally in 2022. It was updated by the New York Times in 2023. This is now. This was not even a year ago. This is now. So when we think about these historical issues are also our present. So when we start to think about homeownership rates, right, and we think about what do those look like today, we have huge changes in our homeownership rates. In fact, we rest around 45% of African American families own their own homes. That is slightly up from previous quarters, where it was about 42% of African American families, but this is compared to about 79% of Caucasian families. We are just not keeping up. So when we have a home, we must guard it with everything that we've got. So what are some of the challenges that are facing our home ownership? Because we can't protect our families and ourselves if we don't know what we're up against. And what are the challenges for our kids and our grandkids as it relates to having access to this quote unquote American dream? Well, one, skyrocketing home prices. We have to deal with home prices. This surge in home prices, fueled by low mortgage rates, limited housing supply, has meant that it's outpaced incomes. Homeownership is so much less accessible now than it used to be. So if you have a home and you have the ability to pass it for your kids, we have to do it in a way where that home is truly an asset and isn't going to be lost or squandered. because they're not going to be able to buy back what they've just lost, right? Number two is going to be stagnant wages, right? Stagnant wages versus rising house costs. Um, Wages just haven't kept up, which we've seen, and we see even more layoffs in the marketplace. So more people are out of work. They can't afford the inflated costs of $12 eggs, right? And so it's putting pressure on homeowners where they just can't buy. They can't get qualified. Then we've got institutional investments in housing. Large investment firms like BlackRock are buying up single family residential properties. So they are driving up the prices by putting in all cash bids. They're buying up inventory and never releasing it, so further constraining the marketplace. And there's a limited availability for future buyers. And once it goes inside of their investment portfolio, they're never going to come back out, which means in 1 to 2 generations, our kids are only going to be able to be renters. There will not be available properties because the institutional investors will have come in if nothing else changes. The next is the impact of Proposition 19. In California, Proposition 19 has completely altered the property tax rules, which is going to impact all of us. Proposition 19 has eliminated, the one-time parent-to-child property tax reassessment exemption, meaning when you used to be able to pass your home with an unlimited exemption, your kids could keep your property tax rate. That doesn't exist anymore, and we have to get creative on strategies to how to make sure that your home is going to be still affordable and stay there. Because Proposition 19 is a forced gentrification. What they want is that our families are not going to have prepared for it, and then we're not going to be able to afford the new property tax rates because wages haven't increased, and we're going to be forced to sell those properties, thence gentrifying the market because the only people who can come in are not going to be people who look like us. Again, we're going to limited housing inventory, right? So there's a limited inventory and they want to take the properties from us. And the way to do that is through economic use, right? Next is going to be racial homeownership disparities, right? We see that there are real disparities for African Americans to be able to get qualified. We saw that with Wells Fargo in 2020 when they were denying 53% of the applicants for refinance, even when they were qualified to be able to take advantage of historic lows. So the banking system itself creating actual barriers to being able to get access. And then the next is going to be rising rental costs, right? Renters are also feeling the pressure because they can't buy, but also they can't afford these rising rent costs. The study showed that renters are spending more than 30% of their income on just housing, which is really pushing the boundaries of what people consider affordable. It's also impacting whether or not our children believe that they're going to be able to have children themselves, which can also stifle our future generations. Right? So we've got to know that those are the things that we're up against and that we have to solve for. Now, again, there was a study that was done in 2017 that found by 2053, the median net worth for African American families was set to hit zero if we did nothing. Because these are the trends. These are the things that we're facing. If we do nothing, we're going to hit zero, period. 70% of African Americans have no estate plan at all. So no protection for their house, for their things, for their stuff, for what we've been building to make sure that it stays safe. And most of the time, that's because we don't think we have any wealth. We don't realize what wealth is, or we don't think we have enough. We just have this one house or this one retirement account. It's not going to be a whole lot. And what most people don't realize by that is that anything that we can pass, specifically real estate, is a huge boom for the next generation if properly protected and leveraged. So we have to change our wealth ethos. We have to redefine what wealth means. Your home is wealth. Your retirement account is wealth. A life insurance policy is wealth. Your bank account is wealth. It must just be properly protected so that it can grow. So who am I? You guys know me, so I'm going to leave this up here for just a second. I think this is going to be available for you guys after this, so I'm not going to spend too much time because I know I have limited time with you. Also, why I do this work. I have been a beneficiary of good estate planning, and I know how powerful these protections can be for intergenerational wealth transfer. And unfortunately, in our community, we lose the majority of our earned wealth at this generation transfer. We're working ourselves to the bone. We're sacrificing time with our families, with our friends, with our communities to be able to provide something, but then we don't have any protections for it and we lose it once we pass away. And what do those numbers look like in California? If your gross estate, so let's say your home is worth $1 million, or and you've got a small retirement account, bank account, etc. Let's say your estate is worth $1 million, regardless of how much debt you have. $46,000 would be minimum probate fees for just the probate attorney and the personal representative. That's before you file court fees or anything else. It is very easy to start to lose everything you've worked for because maybe there's not enough cash. If there's not enough cash, they sell your home to pay the debts. And then you've lost the asset that is the goose that lays the golden eggs for generations. Now, I know we don't have time to delve deep into it here, so I am going to put this up on the screen. Join us for a free webinar, Wills, Trust, and Generational Wealth. I do walk you guys through all of the different pieces of an estate plan that you would need, and that will give you good insight for wherever you go to get this done. Obviously, we're happy to help, but if you go anywhere, we want you to be armed with the information. So you can go to woodlegalgroup.com and it's there on our website. Just click webinar, Wills, Trust, Generational Wealth. You can even watch it right then and there if you want to. You don't have to wait for the dates. With estate planning, for any of this, what's most valuable to you is what your plan should represent. I can't tell you there's a one size fits all. I can tell you what the problems are and I can tell you what the solutions are to deal with those problems. But the other nuances that come in with your estate plan are going to be what's most valuable to you. And that's going to differ between each and every one of you. So how can you get started? You need to create the foundation to your financial house. That is your comprehensive estate plan. You need to make sure you're not going through court process. You need to make sure that you have some parameters around how to protect your estate, how to minimize taxes, how to deal with Proposition 19, etc. Number two is you have to build your financial house. You have to start investing in the markets, in real estate, building businesses, etc. You may feel like, hey, Portia, I'm a little too old for that. You're not. Maybe it's using the equity in your home to build an ADU or to buy a duplex or a multi-unit property. Maybe that's what it is to build real estate. And maybe it's building real estate and a real estate business that's going to help provide income so you don't get forced into a reverse mortgage because you have liquidity problems, or you don't end up in a situation where your kids are selling and they've lost everything that you've built. We also need to think about family as a business, talking to our parents, our children, our extended family about comprehensive planning, because one person's missteps can have a ripple effect on everybody else. And if we're working collaboratively, we can pool resources to buy life insurance on the older members of the family, to make sure that we're helping to supplement them. If that means, taking out a mortgage to do an ADU or anything like that, if we're working together towards a common goal, we can get much further. Last, it's get life insurance. Get life insurance, get a life insurance long-term care combination. And we go over more of this in the Wills, Trust, and Generational Wealth webinar, but please go through that. Now, I know we have limited time and I've gone over it a little bit, so I'm just going to ask you guys to do this one thing for me. Please take out your phones. If you're on your phone, take a little screenshot real quick, but please take off your phones. I want to offer you guys 50% off a 30-minute strategy session with me. I can only go over general information here, but I want to be able to answer your specific questions. And since I couldn't do that live with you guys on this panel, please scan this code. If you leave me a little review about the snippet that we've given you, you will get a code for 50% off to come and talk with me. Additionally, because we're talking real estate, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our course is coming up. The Power of the Inherited Home is happening live on April 1st. It is at blacktrustfundkids.com. And that we're going to talk about how to truly turn your home into an asset that can support your family for generations. And we're going to go a lot deeper in how do you analyze the property, how do you negotiate that with your kids, how do you set up structure, what does the estate planning look like, how do you determine what model makes the most sense for you, etc. And again, that's at blacktrustfundkids.com, the Power of the Inherited Home class, and it's going to be on April 1st. Outside of that, guys, I'm super sorry that I couldn't be here live with you on this panel, but thank you for letting me share a little bit about the value of real estate, why it's so important. Please definitely join us for some of these other educational opportunities so that we can delve much deeper into the value of these things. Thank you again. Here's some information about us and where to find us. Uh, Talk to you soon.